We got so many developments in the Abrego Garcia matter. I might have to do two hot takes on this Saturday, but I think I'll combine it into one. Abrego Garcia is a free man, at least until Monday, having been released by a magistrate judge in Tennessee from all federal custody, whether for the crime, the indictment that the Trump administration manufactured against him for human trafficking, or for his removal to El Salvador or being removed from the country, detention in immigration and custom enforcement. He's out of all federal custody, ordered out by a magistrate judge, Judge Holmes in Tennessee. He is now already in Maryland with his family, free for the weekend. On Monday, he must report, pursuant to Judge Holmes's order, to ICE, Immigration and Custom Enforcement, in Baltimore, Maryland. And then he'll be under the jurisdiction of Judge Xinis in Maryland, who already ordered, once he's released, that he be brought to Maryland under her supervision. So he will be then subject to release conditions or other conditions set by her about whether he's going to stay in detention or not while she continues to have jurisdiction over his due process violation case, constitutional case, now that he's been sprung from jail in Tennessee. I'll cover it all, including a new filing by the lawyers for Abrego Garcia, including one that I know well, Sean Hecker, who filed this new motion, who said that the coercion and campaign of retribution and vengeance to support their pending motion for vindictive prosecution continues. That after the government knew that he was going to be released on Friday, which he was, they offered a new deal. And once he rejected that deal, which was basically to go live in Costa Rica and not be deported to El Salvador if he pled guilty to the 2 felony counts in Tennessee. After he rejected that, then once again, the Department of Justice and the Homeland Security started bashing him in the paper, in the press, including the judge, which all supports the pending motion for vindictive prosecution that's still pending in Tennessee. You won't be confused when I'm done. You're on Legal AF. Let's get to the reporting. Kilmer Abrego Garcia was here under legal status, working under legal status, was picked up at a Home Depot in front of one of his children in Maryland. And even though he had an order to stop him from being removed to El Salvador, he was one of 200 people that were thrown into a plane and brought to the Supermax killer prison in El Salvador. Except he was different because he had an order from a U.S. immigration judge saying he couldn't be sent to El Salvador. We now all know that ICE knew that he had that order, and despite that, illegally deported him. That Judge Xinis, when the case was filed in front of her in Maryland, ordered his return. That order was supported by 2 different appeals at the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals and by a 9-0 vote of the United States Supreme Court. Despite that, it took the Trump administration 2 more months to bring him back after refusing to do it, after laughing in everybody's face, after taunting Judge Xinis, including bringing El Salvador's president to the White House, along with Pam Bondi, to taunt America that they were never going to bring Armando Garcia back while his wife and children waited. And then only because they manufactured a phony, I'm going to call it for what it is, a phony indictment that he participated in human smuggling. They keep saying he's a human trafficker. That's not what they allege. They allege that he's smuggled. And there's a big difference between smuggling and trafficking. Trafficking means the person is against their will being trafficked, like child sex trafficking. Smuggling means the person wants you to do a favor for them or do something for them and get them across a border. That's voluntary. That's consensual. That's different. But they keep calling him a child predator, which he's not. And there's no allegations that he is. That he's a trafficker. He's not. There's no allegations that he is. That he's a wife beater. I don't know. There was some domestic violence in the marriage. I mean, but that's not for the U.S. government, the federal prosecutors to be talking about. So what happened is he gets returned to the United States, but has to go to Tennessee. 2 judges in Tennessee to follow. Judge Crenshaw, who's the federal United States District Judge in Tennessee, Middle District, and Magistrate Judge Holmes. She deals with bond and bail conditions, whether somebody's going to be pretrial detained or not, how they're going to be released, and all of that. So we got on the radar there because Judge Holmes held a hearing about a month ago in which there was testimony from the government to try to keep him in jail, pretrial detention. And she went through all the facts and all the evidence, and she said, let me get this straight. Your lead witnesses for the government are 3 people, all who have been convicted of crimes. One person's been deported 5 times and has been convicted of human trafficking. And this is your best witnesses? And a scrap of paper in which some state trooper 3 years ago took an inventory of 7 or 8 people in a car with Abrego Garcia, and one of them may or may not have been underage, and that is your human trafficking smuggling case? She said, it's smuggling, first of all. This was the judge. And that's, at best, a year or 6 months in jail in our jurisdiction. I'm not keeping him in. No, she didn't dismiss the indictment because she didn't have the power to do that. But she said, I'm not keeping Abrego Garcia in jail. And of course, they didn't want that. The government wanted him always in jail, never to be returned to Maryland. And so she makes that ruling. He stays in federal protection with the federal marshals while his lawyers run to Maryland. And so this was good because Holmes sort of held the ring while they ran back the lawyers for Abrego Garcia to Maryland. Judge Xinis, who has the original case on the constitutional violations, the due process violations of having sent him illegally to El Salvador, she still has jurisdiction over the case, affirmed by the Supreme Court. She then orders that when he pops out, he get remanded to Maryland under her jurisdiction and her setting the conditions of whether he's in jail or not. Okay, so that happened about 3 weeks ago. Now we fast forward. In the last several days, last 48 hours, the lawyers for Abrego Garcia, including Sean Hecker, who I told you I know, they filed a motion for a motion to dismiss the indictment against him, which is based on a traffic stop 3 years ago where he didn't even get a ticket. Have that dismissed for vindictive prosecution. And they point as grounds of vindictive prosecution all of the statements by Pam Bondi, all of the things that happened in the White House, all the statements attacking him as a predator, child sex trafficker, wife beater, and the rest in trying to convict him in the court of public opinion. That is the number one element of vindictive prosecution. So that motion is pending. Judge Crenshaw, because he's the top judge, right? He's the district court judge. He sets a briefing schedule through September 9th on that particular issue. While that's going on, Judge Holmes, who's been sitting on another motion to modify the conditions of his release and to see if he needs to be in jail at all on this, as I said, on this pretrial detention thing, she ultimately rules yesterday, on Friday, that she's going to release him because she's going to find that there's no necessity to keep him in pretrial detention from the criminal case standpoint, knowing also that Judge Xinis will make him available to come back to Tennessee for things that happen in his case. Now, Judge Crenshaw hasn't yet ruled on the motion to dismiss the indictment on vindictive prosecution grounds. We won't know about that until the end of September, but the magistrate judge makes the rulings now about who stays or doesn't stay in detention center while their case is proceeding. So let me read to you first from what Judge Holmes has ruled, and then I'll read you the new filing to show that the vindictive prosecution continues. Here's the order from Judge Holmes. I'll put this up in Legal AF Substack. Abrego shall be released no later than 5 p.m. on yesterday to the custody of his counsel, whose name and other identifying information shall be provided to the U.S. Marshal Service. So they released him to Sean Hecker and his law firm, and which shall coordinate Abrego's transportation to Maryland below. But he doesn't have to report to the Maryland pretrial detention office until Monday, or to ICE until Monday. So that's why he's home with his family, who he hasn't seen since April or March. Once these steps are done, Abrego shall travel directly to Maryland, paragraph 4, where he must report on 10 a.m. Monday. And then Abrego must remain in the custody of his brother, who's his designated custodian, and in compliance with all conditions of its pretrial release. So she made the brother sort of the keeper. He's the brother's keeper, I guess is the best way to put it. And then all the other conditions of his bond release. And that's it. Additionally, should Abrego be taken into ICE custody following his return to Maryland without limitation, all of these authorities, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Justice, shall ensure that while Abrego remains in ICE custody, he has access to his attorneys, both physically and via telephone, to allow him to prepare for trial in this case. That's her order. He's out. He's out celebrating, and the government is out trying to punish him again, calling him a sex trafficker, a child sex predator, a member of MS-13, a drug smuggler, and all the things that are not in his indictment, by the way. Separately, the lawyers for Abrego Garcia have also filed their motion of supplemental authority to tell the judge that they're still bashing him, and this is more evidence of the vindictive prosecution. When you have Pam Bondi and others say that attacking Judge Xinis, that Judge Xinis is allowing he's not even convicted, an indicted child predator. There's no allegations of him being a child predator. Wife beater. That was allegations the wife made a number of years ago and took him back in and resolved that in their own marriage. And human smuggler or human trafficker. It's smuggler anyway. And no, he hasn't been convicted of that. To bash the federal judge. And all it's doing is strengthening the hand for the lawyers of Abrego Garcia in their motion to dismiss the indictment for vindictive prosecution. I think it gets dismissed. I mean, it's rare to get a vindictive prosecution motion granted, but if there was ever a set of facts and the evidence by the executive branch, the Department of Justice, this is it. So Crenshaw, I think it's 70-30. He dismisses this indictment end of September because he's got to punish the prosecution to ensure that they don't do this ever again. That's the thing that judges have to worry about. Even if he thinks, well, maybe there's enough evidence to keep him and he was indicted and all that, they got to say, but I got to focus on the prosecutors and their out of control rogue conduct. And if he doesn't shut them down, they'll just be emboldened to continue to do it again and again. This is not the only vindictive prosecution motion that's pending. LaMonica MacGyver, who's a representative from New Jersey in Congress, has one against Alina Habba in her office for having arrested her for doing her job, providing oversight over a federal detention center. And you'll see one from Adam Schiff, the senator, over this mortgage fraud. Lisa Cook at the Federal Reserve Board of Governors for mortgage fraud. Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, for mortgage fraud. This is all Donald Trump's enemies list and vindictive prosecution at the highest level. And we'll continue to follow it right here on Legal AF. I will post these documents up on Legal AF Substack right now. I just posted the Ghislaine Maxwell transcripts there for you to read. While you're there, hit the subscribe button. And if you can swing it, become a paid member of Legal AF Substack. That's the way to support what we do. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.